And no doctor plans their entire treatment strategy around preventing illness. You got to treat the problem. I can give you a drug to reduce your cholesterol, but I got to treat a heart attack too in case you have one. And that's the idea that I think COVID missed. And it happened, and I've asked for Dr. Fauci's resignation. I've offered to debate him. I've done whatever I can do. But the biggest challenge of all is you get silenced. And here's the thing that I'm going to say that I don't want you to ever forget, because it's true not just in medicine. But if you mix politics and medicine, you know what you get? Politics. You squash medicine. But also because it weakens our economy and because our dollar no longer is strong. My big concern is not 7% inflation, it's a devaluation, where all of a sudden our dollar's worth half what it used to be. And there's a lot of pressure on us from outside countries like China, which is another example of how Washington got it wrong. Not recognizing that the existential threat they provide to our country. Let me be clear about this. China's not just interested in making sure that they beat us economically. China must destroy it. The prior mayor, who I know, only because I've done free clinics, both Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, but the former mayor in Philadelphia said, what kind of toxic white woke stuff is that? That you don't think that's a crisis to have 540 plus people murdered, many of them black men. And I say, hallelujah, you're right. It is a problem. And it shows that the ideology that we've been shoved into our brains by the last 10 years of, much of it, Marxist-mediated ideology is actually false. So let's talk about that. Because the real question is not whether Washington got it wrong, which we're kind of giving the pep talk at the beginning about. The real issue is, why does Washington have it wrong? They're not trying to hurt us, right? These people, I'm assuming, are doing their best around the country. So what happened? Why do we end up with the kinds of events that happened with that press conference, or discussions that we're having today about the recurring faults of Washington's ability to cope with the basic realities of our country? Because we have a covenant, right? We make a deal. We're citizens. We follow the rules. We pay our taxes. We try to raise healthy families. The government's responsibility is to protect us domestically and our borders. They're not doing it. They're breaking the fundamental covenant of what determines what a nation is. Why? Because we have different values. We literally believe different things are happening. Democrats care about caring, and they care about victims. And they focus on that a lot. Now, we care about caring and victims too, but not everyone's a victim to me, and not to you either. And frankly, I don't want to be a victim. My dad always told me when I was growing up that I could control everything that happened to me to the best of my ability, and if it didn't work, then at least it wasn't my fault, because I tried my hardest. He never told me I was good at math. You know why? Because if I'm good at math and I get a bad test score, then I'm not good at math. I can't change that. But if I got a bad score because I didn't work hard, I can change that. That's the America I grew up in. That's what Republicans generally believe. That's why the most precious covenant we sign, the marriage covenant, it's the only one you sign with society. You don't sign your death certificate, right? It's the building block of our society. We've cut out, we've whittled away at that, weakened all the elements of our society that allowed us to develop the conservative mindset that defined America for decades. Because, as Margaret Thatcher said, the realities of life are conservative. Fundamentally, what does conservatism mean? Conservatism try to raise people who are fully formed and able to participate in society, feel empowered and grows, and are engaged enough to make the country a better place, wherever they are. And we've taken that away. And again, I've fought these battles, I've taken these hits, I've got the scars to prove it. I will not be silenced, I can't be bought. Now, when I started into this campaign, I burned the boats. I canceled the show, canceled my magazine, canceled my businesses. I burned the boats. I'm not going back. So I did that knowing that I would pursue this forward. New York Times writes an article. Usually it's just he's a horrible human being, look at his hair. Or, it's just non sequitur. I can't even understand where the attack's coming from. And it doesn't bother me that much because it's not why I get up in the morning. It really doesn't matter. I get up in the morning for this, to talk to people that I care about who are willing to at least discuss. I may not have all the answers, but I'll listen to your thoughts and I'll get better. Every single day on the campaign, I'm a smarter person than I was the day before because someone comes up to me and says, you were dead wrong what you said yesterday. So what did I say wrong? And you know what? They're often right. They often see a blind spot that I didn't notice. But the New York Times, this time, for the first time that I can remember, in my living memory, actually said something that was profoundly important and I think accurate. They said I wasn't just a bad person. I was a dangerous person. But this is important. They said I'm dangerous because I have been preaching individualism. Now, I'm not making this up. You can actually check it out. It was last Sunday's paper. And they wrote that in a time of structural racism, systemic racism, global warming, and COVID, we cannot afford individualism. We don't want people empowered because they can't make those decisions on their own. We have to tell them, we the government. Therefore, my promoting individualism and empowerment actually is a negative, a problem, a dangerous thing to do. Guilty as charged. I have a lot more confidence in each of your ability to decide whether you want to do something like take a vaccine, wear a mask, go to work. I trust you more on those issues, frankly, because in any complex system, any complex biologic entity, the slower down you are when you make a decision, the better. The best person to make a decision in your life is you, and you, and you, and you. Always. Now, government can help sometimes when we're fighting a war, but I don't want them involved in micromanaging my life or your life, because they can't do it. It's not about, wouldn't it be nice? They just can't do it. And they proved it during COVID. Shores here in Jersey, we just don't have strong leadership. There's no sense of purpose, of manifest destiny that we can get this done. And without that can-do effort, and you've got the transportation secretary home with babies, right? And have all the time to adopt twins, and then take paternity leave. And he's gonna be running for president in 2 years. Yeah, pretty good chance he'll be, he'll be facing some Republicans, that guy. I chose to be in Pennsylvania. I love this state, I always have. I've talked about it endlessly. I've done free clinics across the state. I've done lots of work within the state of Pennsylvania, in addition to vacationing here. So for me, it's not an important issue. So I hear stories about my pro-life position, which again, I'll be clear on this, because people like to pick on these things. I do a lot of television shows, and I cover all kinds of topics, and I have people on my show who have opinions that often I don't agree with. But my job as a host is to put the ideas out there. Like if there were half a room of Democrats, and I don't get up in the morning and hate Democrats. I want to hear what they're saying so I can give my ideas back and hopefully compel them to think that we have better ideas. So if I'm doing a topic and someone gets up and says something, that doesn't mean I'm endorsing or embracing them. I'm strongly pro-life. I believe life starts at conception. I do believe that the life of the mother is a defensible reason for a family to decide to make a choice, a difficult choice. And so that's a position that I have. You may not 100% agree with me. You may only agree with part of what I'm saying, but I will fight hard for what I just said. That I promise. And when Joe Biden says he was to pay for everyone's tuition, my first response is, why don't you just reduce the tuition? Because we're paying too much for not a lot of services. Education, we do. Education has gone up sixfold in cost. It's not better than when we were in college, is it? So it doesn't make sense. I think we have the opportunity to get more young people taught online. Only half of kids in college actually live on college campuses. They can't afford it. It'll drop dramatically what we spend. But many kids shouldn't be wasting their time in college because it's not taking them into their future. They should be doing trades in schools and need to have basic insights to do that. I don't think it's possible to do that without letting that decision be made at the local level by the parents, which is why I'm strongly in favor of school choice. And I visit, and I'll say this over and over. I love teachers, but I think the teachers' union has really done a lot of harm to the profession. And I went down to Chester County where there's a bunch of charter schools. 70% of kids in that county go to charter schools. And you know why their parents send them there? Is it for the math education? Is it for the graduation rates? Well, the math education is much better. Graduation rates through the roof, over 90%. But that's not why the parents send them there. They send them to that school, there's 4 of them, those schools, because they're safe. That's their big issue. And so 2/3 of Republicans feel what you feel, which is under the cover of COVID, there were changes made to the election laws, and they weren't adjudicated in a timely fashion, and they're willing to say, okay, you know what, there was COVID. But then in 21, we had problems too. Right? I'm in Montgomery County, where I'm from. They sent out over 10,000 ballots, and only one side was printed. So to fix it, they sent 10,000 more out. And these add up after a while. 10,000 here, 10,000 there, you reach real numbers. And there are other parts of the state where we allow curing of ballots, which are not constitutional in Pennsylvania. The legislature is trying to change this. It gets blocked by the Democratic Governor Wolf. So, and the Lieutenant Governor, Fetterman, has to live with some of this as well. He's the likely candidate in the fall. So you know, these are issues that Pennsylvanians are repulsed by. We have to have election sanctity. 80% of Americans believe in voter ID. I don't understand what the argument is here, right? It's a ruse. You show your ID for everything you do. What's the big deal? It's easy to get an ID of any kind. It's the kind of tactic that when we hear, we think, what's going on? Well, if you think that's the problem, then you're the problem. You know? And finally, be brave when you're articulating your thoughts. Enough of us being shamed. If we're going to be empowering each other to control our destiny, let's start with the part of our body that's most important, our brains and our ability to articulate arguments. Because each of you have the ability to speak to the issues that I addressed to today, probably many of you better than me, just like we just heard.